Hi there. The Dungeon Master Roundtable you're about to watch is just one of a few topics that were covered during a live stream on the Dicely DnD Twitch channel. And the music you'll hear during this video was created by Tabletop Audio. And now I'll let our guests introduce themselves.
Hello, I am Juce from Master the Game RPG on YouTube. You can check me out. We make all sorts of tabletop RPG content, Dungeons and Dragons, Fantasy Age, you name it. Palladium books is something I'm known for by that community. So yeah, head on over there if you want reviews, opinion videos, live plays, all that good stuff.
My name is Crowe. I run the YouTube channel, the Crowe's Perch, where I cover a bunch of D&D horror stories and other stories like that. I just like narrating other people's stuff because I like telling stories, and stories are fun. And that's why I like playing things like D&D. And you can catch my channel over on YouTube/Crowe's Perch. I also have a Discord. And I recently have little merch, so I got little do murder. I'm a cartoon bird on the internet. How do you doing?
Hey, I'm Kevin, also known as KR King. My channel is D&D Homebrew. I specialize in homebrewing your own world, creating a entire campaign setting from start to finish. That's kind of what I've always done. I played since the old days. I really like to help people to create their own worlds, but I also analyze modules and different campaign settings, trying to get some of the stuff out of there that you can use in your own world.
Hey folks, Wally DM here. I have a YouTube channel that's focused on puzzles and traps and wrote a book about it.
My name is Fred Wheeler. I run the How to D&D YouTube channel. I talk about Dungeons and Dragons and RPGs, and I'm the one who herds the cattle or the sheep or the cats or whatever it is into these things. Dungeon Master Roundtable things.
Let's move on to our second point here. So, the second question I have for all of you here today: how would you deal with or facilitate "I want to ride that" syndrome, which is when a PC needs to fight larger creatures while climbing on top of them? And when I posed this question, I didn't realize that there is actually some mechanics in the Dungeon Master's Guide to kind of facilitate this a little bit. But who reads the Dungeon Master's Guide, am I right?
Hey!
Unless, you're looking for some inspiration. But let's say this situation came up and you hadn't really gone through the Dungeon Master's Guide. How do you think you might deal with player characters wanting to climb on top of larger creatures? This time we'll start at the opposite side with Juce.
So first of all, when the Dungeon Master Guide came out, I did buy it, and I read it and reviewed it chapter by chapter on my channel. But I didn't have favorable things to say. Now, over the years, I've learned to love it. But either way, I didn't realize there were rules about this in the Dungeon Master Guide. I must have forgotten the last 7 years or whatever. So I am somebody who actually is that player. I like to play barbarians and martial classes, and I am definitely the one who likes to do crazy shit, jump on things. I don't care if it's flying 1,000 feet in the air. That's me. I'm the one that jumps, tries to grab it, and kill it while on its back. Because I think it's fun. Again, rule of cool, right? So even as a DM, I like to reward that kind of behavior. I give, inspiration if we're playing 5e. I might allow them to do more damage because they're hitting a dragon in a spot it's not used to being hit, or, something like that. Because again, I'm rewarding the behavior I want at my table, the cinematic, over-the-top stuff. Now, again, most players don't try these things because they weigh risk and reward, and there's always the risk of plummeting to your death. Or being taken back to an even more dangerous place if you're on the back of a dragon, for example, or a manticore or whatever. So, yeah, that's what I like to do. Now, as a DM, mechanically, again, I've just always done athletics check, and then every round you're on it, athletics check to hold on. Things like that. You can only have one hand free, so you don't have your shield anymore. Depending on things, we might give you a chance to not fall off the dragon on a fail, maybe give you a saving throw like I've talked about. I know it sounds like I'm a really lenient DM, but I am also the DM that lets the dice fall where they are, and so I kill a lot of players on accident because of these things. And by accident, I mean it's beyond my control, so whatever. It's fate. So, it's one of those things where I try to let them do cool stuff. I try to support it, at my table, but at the same time, they all know that whatever the dice say is what's going to happen, and that is what it is. So, yeah.
It's a wonderful way to do it, you know. Encourage the freedom to kill yourself. It's a beautiful thing. And I mean, hey, as long as they're having fun doing it, that's what's important. And you know, you took this to the extremes, as like, whereas I'm thinking like Lord of the Rings, you know, like a hobbit climbs on a troll and then they're stabbing in the back. But you're like, no, we're up miles in the air on the back of a dragon, or and falling is a possibility. I'm like, hadn't even thought about that. Of course, that's a thing.
Well, just a couple weeks ago in our Tyranny of Dragons game, we are in the Rise of Tiamat portion. We're kind of doing a little side quest thing, and they're in a cave that isn't in the module, even though it kind of sets this thing up. It's not in there, and so I planned in this place. There's cultists. There's a captive cultist that they're trying to get to bring back to Waterdeep. And then there is, in one part of the Dwarven Mines, it's like, there's a sign. None of my players could speak Dwarven. I was blown away by this. I didn't know that. And I had a sign that said, do not enter, like, there's a rock elemental or an earth elemental. Like, don't do this. And, because
don't open rock inside.
Yeah, basically. So there's like dirt mounds. Like I set it up so they couldn't really get a good look anyways. And so then they're like, well, what's the sign about? Then they were like, oh, maybe it's like little vermin creatures. And so they're like looking through the mounds, and they went in there. They woke up the rock elemental that now comes out, that then creates a lot of noise. And then one of the players did climb on its back. Well, then from the other side of them, because they made so much noise, cultists came. So the original thought that I had, I didn't think they were going to be cornered. I actually thought the Dwarven miners and them were going to corner the cultists later on. Instead, they got cornered by the cultists and this earth elemental with one of the players on top of the earth elemental. So then one of the players went invisible and shot the rock elemental from where the cultists were, and then the rock elemental's focus changed. And then the player on top of it did like some control, I don't remember how I did it, but I let him basically point and start commanding the earth elemental. And then one of my players rolled a nat 1 later on and accidentally hit the earth elemental. And then it still went right back to that. But I let him control it, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll let him be like a companion. And I was working towards that, in my head as this is going on. But then they screwed it up with a bad dice roll. Because again, dice are sacred in my game. So, it was fun. It was really awesome.
It's a fantastic back and forth. I love that story.
What a great encounter. One of the first things you said about the dragon, though, you know what really helps with that, just in case things go bad? Featherfall.
Yes. Yeah. Back to Featherfall.
Do you give all your players Featherfall? Are you just
I give all my characters Featherfall.
Yeah.
Because nobody's throwing me across the crevice if I can just float down.
We need the Oprah meme. You get a Featherfall. You get a Featherfall. Everyone gets a Featherfall.
Exactly.
Hey, that dragon starts getting the best of me. I'm jumping and floating down like a balloon.
But you know what an easy snack is? Somebody falling from Featherfall.
That's
very
true,
slow.
If it's like a dragon, he's just
sure.
gonna swoop back around and just chomp.
Looky there.
Oh yeah, your AC would be so much more diminished. Like now your dex doesn't work.
I would give the dragon advantage, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
you
a
know
good
It's like
point,
you
too.
can't. What are you gonna do? Swim away? You're in the air. You're like falling slowly.
There you go. There's the video there's the video that just came from this. Is how do you prevent your players from always using Featherfall? Disadvantage on aerial attacks.
I can see that. I'm gonna put
You
a
get like
thumbnail up
DMC
there.
comboed in the air.
Yeah.
It'll be in the
Featherfall
vein of my
prop.
old videos. Featherfall is breaking your game.
No, like some good old clickbait. Jacob, how would you facilitate the players hopping on larger creatures?
So, as you can tell by some of my language, I like video games. So I love Monster Hunter, I love Dragon's Dogma, and I never played Shadow of the Colossus, but I always loved the idea of scaling larger monsters in order to deal with them. If anything, I would take it a step further, even from where Juce was saying, and say that I would probably give it resistance to attacks if you're swiping away at the legs of the dragon here. Because, I mean, look at that thing and how it's held up. The base of it's going to be the strongest parts of its body. if anything, where its wings are, it's like fibrous, right? We're assuming it's some kind of like lizard-like creature, or I guess we're gonna probably base like where its wings would be similar to a bat. That's really thin. You can carve through that with, you know, something a lot easier than you would have to get through thick-ass, you know, dragon hide. If anything, like something like in Dragon's Dogma, like hitting the weak points of where the dragon is does more damage. I think Shadow of the Colossus does the same thing. I would say, yeah, I would make it so this thing is like damn near impossible if you want to toe-to-toe swipe at it like you're playing Skyrim or something, you know? I want to encourage, like I said before, for the players to come up with creative ideas, and, you know, that's a good way to even push them to want to do that, is if you're hacking away at this dragon's feet and you're just like, fuck, this isn't working, you know?
Damn, so a combat encounter where you specifically want to get the party on top of the monster. And how would you run that from the monster side, you know? Because then you've got to deal with, like, they're all on me, how do I get them down? How do I use my breath weapon? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking, is like how I would handle it is some people, especially the people who can deal the most damage to the dragon, need to be on it. Some people need to distract it, because if it's paying attention to everybody on it, it's going to start throwing people off. You know, I would even do something like, you know, we do saves at the start of every turn, end of every turn, or whatever. I would say, like, yeah, dragon's turn, it's going to start, like, wiggling itself about. It's going to try to get you guys off him, you know? So you want it to not do that. So there's got to be someone on the bottom trying to distract it, trying to get its attention. Somebody trying to stab away at it, you know, someone trying to cast spells or whatever. I think it lends to being able to make it so the dragon feels more like this is a big-ass, really smart, really powerful creature, and you have to pull out all the stops if you want to take it down.
Yeah, well said. I think that's a fantastic, you know, you got to get your party thinking tactically. And, you know, they might all try to climb on at first, and then after realizing that they're all going to get bucked off, yeah, they're like, all right, we got to split up the job. Hopefully you have a party that's like that.
Or they just keep getting bucked off, and then they're all in the same line when it breath weapons them, so, hey.
Ooh.
It's always nice to get them in a line. For those
yeah,
dragons.
exactly.
Ooh, Mordecai saying Phantasmal Force is a pretty great distraction in 5e. Yeah, that is a good spell choice for that. Kevin, any thoughts about getting on top of bigger monsters? I think I should probably rephrase that.
Well, you know, it's interesting because hearing when you answer these later, you hear people saying, "Oh, this is what I was thinking" or whatever. But you know, I think Juce's point about this is one of those things where it's cool, right? It's cool to get up on a creature. It's cool, and there are rules in the DMG. And it's funny because I have videos where I'm also defending the Dungeon Master's Guide. People like Fred, who's out there, is always bagging on it. And I'm always like, it's got inspiration. And they do have rules. I think it's a strength against dexterity, or is it dexterity against? I can't remember exactly what the check is, but you gain advantage on the creature when you're fighting it. And then I think to move on it, is it difficult terrain, I believe, or something like that?
Yeah, which makes
sense.
sense.
I believe that's right.
Yeah, and so it's something really cool, and exactly what Jacob was saying. You know, if you think about a gargantuan creature, what areas of it are defendable and whatever. But I also would really emphasize the creature. If you've got advantage and you're stabbing some creature in the neck, it is going to want to get you off, or just that whole thing shake you aside, which may help the players on the ground. But, you know, if you're on the back of a dragon, is it resistant enough to its own breath to just turn its head? First of all, could it turn its head and pick you off, you know, just because you're stabbing it and it's feeling that? Could it also blast you? I mean, again, because is it in a sort of fight or flight mode, right? When you are on its back. If you decide this is really vulnerable, this is a great strategy. Or if he's got 500 hit points or something, they're ignoring you. Again, whatever that situation is. So I would say it's a great tactic. Again, the martial character or whoever who wants to be heroic, jump up on the creature, gain that advantage, knowing that there are consequences, right? And then that epic thing, and again with Jacob, if everyone's flying off in all directions, but you are coming at this thing, it's such a great difference than just the usual blasting or, you know, fighting it from the front and hoping the breath weapon doesn't kill you and that kind of thing. And I had an example. I think it was a game I was playing. I wasn't GMing. I was playing where someone jumped on a purple worm, and was because the purple worm then couldn't do this. The thing was, I believe the purple worm then went back into the ground, and this player was still on this worm in its, in its things. Now, this was a while ago. I think this was a 3.5 situation. I don't remember the rules, but again, that's the thing about getting on something. Again, what Juce said, if it flies off, you're on a heck of a ride, right? You go up 100 feet in the air. Now you're going where it's going, and you've just got to ride it out. You decided to jump there, and the players are all watching. Talk about a chase, right? What are we going to do? Unless, of course, it's Wally, and you've just got your feather fall. And then you see him falling to the ground. The creature comes around, boom, and it's rolled up a new character. No, but I mean, that's... So that's what I like about it. It has that. That's the thing. Because, again, we've all seen Lord of the Rings, where the hobbits do that. And whatever the mechanics were of them hanging on to the troll, whenever you watch that, you think, But as Juce said, if it works in... none of the physics make any sense in D&D. It's that kind of thing, right? It's all people's backs would have been broken 10 times and all this stuff, the damage. They don't make sense in the Die Hard movies, right? So... There's a certain suspension here of disbelief. And if you try to get too rules lawyery on stuff, you can lose that. But as I think we've said on both of these questions, there are consequences. And so players realize I'm not in some heroic fun world where whatever I do, if it's clever or funny, nothing happens to me, right? So I love the idea of it, but the players should know that they can get hurt.
Well, I'm glad you brought up a Tarrasque as an example. So their foot alone is like, just the toe is going to be like 30 feet tall, probably. Like, how cool as a fighter is it to describe how many times you're hitting him in the toe? Like, come on, you got to climb it. You got to do something about it, right? Like, hit it somewhere else. And honestly, if you want to go to the realism thing, how much damage are you really going to do? You're not going to kill it stabbing it in its toe realistically 1,000 times.
Might fall over, maybe.
Yeah, it might fall over.
Maybe.
And is there, just like Jacob was saying, well, I'm going to make the feet harder to hit, or what? Is there some vulnerable spot, a la Smog? Is there something where how you would determine that if what Tarrasque got it, what's vulnerable on it, but other creatures, and you climb up there and you realize the player, I'm really bugging this thing. This tendon right here is really, I've got him in a nerve or something. And that's where you can also... They can get themselves out of some battle where because when someone jumps on there, sometimes it's those desperation moves, those things where all the players are going, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? And you like to reward that sort of creativity with something.
Absolutely. Oh, a lot of great points on this. And also for anybody who's actually wondering about the Dungeon Master's Guide rules, they can be found on page 271 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's just called...
They're not going to read it.
No, probably not. But that... Hey, we
should read that book.
You can't say you don't know where it is now. But before you do read it, Wally, pretend like you haven't read it.
I'm going to next week.
Yeah, I'll pretend like I haven't read it. Yeah, so there's a lot of great points here. And I'm going to be honest, I did not know it was in that Dungeon Master's Guide because... I haven't read it, and even knowing it now, I'm still not going to read it because I would rather do this as we go. So someone wants to jump on the back of a monster. That's okay. So senses are going to have to come alert for the Dungeon Master. They're going to have to take into account everything. I think as Juce or one of you said immediately, whatever character is going to try to climb up this monster or this beast, they're going to have to drop their shield. So immediately you've got a character, you're going to have to remind them, be like, hey, if they do get attacked, maybe there's some other creatures in there trying to attack it. Their armor class is -2. They're also trying to hold on. Now, I'm going to run this from my experience of riding horses, because I used to ride horses a lot when I was a kid. They don't want you on top of them. They would rather be back in the barn, eating hay, drinking water, hanging out, having a few margaritas and watching the sun go down. They don't want to be out with you on their back riding around. So therefore, a horse that is fed up with you is going to do everything they can to get you off. I think Jacob or Kevin, a few of you said, bucking is one of the things, one of the methods that a horse is going to do. It's going to try to buck you off. I've had friends where a horse will rear up, which comes back up on its hind legs, and just fold over backwards. And I've had friends that have had their pelvis crushed because the horse decided to just go backwards. So with that in mind, let's apply this to Dungeons and Dragons. You're on the top of this beast. It doesn't want you on there. I'm gonna say that, yeah, no, the dragon is trying to reach back. It's trying to bite you to take you off there. It can't do it. So what's it gonna do? It can fly off. That's a great thing. But it's not gonna float up like a hot air balloon. No, we're going Top Gun Maverick with this stuff. I mean, that dragon's gonna be doing all kinds of things. It's gonna flip upside down. It's going to buzz the tower. It's going to throw itself into the mountain because it can take it with the hit points, but the person on back probably can't.
That's actually a really good idea. To make it so once it realizes it can't just get you off, like say like strength check, it's trying to like just grab you off. It's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna ram into the fucking mountain, and it's gonna be like, well, I'm gonna take less damage than you, hopefully.
It's such beautiful imagery. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
I would do it if I had like a
dragon
bee
feel like a
trying to
dragon.
sting me. If I had a bee on my back or something, and I couldn't get it off, I'd freaking squish it against the side of a house. Or
Yeah, it's
something.
like a tick, or something. You're just like, oh, get
Maybe
down.
not a tick. I don't want that.
Oh, wow, these bug eye examples. Oh, God.
So many bugs. But yeah, I mean,
hate bugs.
exactly. I mean, you can take even like wrestling, for example. I mean, the maneuvers from that you can roll. I mean, that's the first thing that would apply for creatures that can't fly. They'll roll. I mean, you've got this mammoth beast. Even a purple worm can just use its movement and go bloop and roll over and come back up. Your character's on the back, they're gonna get squished. They're gonna take some bludgeoning damage. But I mean, I do want to be rule of cool though too. I do want to have the players have their characters do cool things. So and I think it's perfect for a rogue. I mean, I would give them sneak attack damage if they're on top of a beast and stabbing it. And I would have them make acrobatics checks and athletics checks trying to stop on. But I've also read like 3 pages of the monsters know what they're doing too. And I know that I need to put myself into the mind of that monster that has something on its back. And we're going to try to get it off. Bad choice of words. We're going to try to remove that character the best that we can. That's some editing for you later, Denny. Thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic. Also, what a wonderful book. The Monsters Know What They're Doing by Keith Amman. Like, if you're looking to up your game, read that book. That'll give you some inspiration for the Monster Manual.
I've read 3
That is one of the best books we have in our community. Like, I swear, it's so good. Like, I read it sometimes. If I know I'm using a monster I haven't used before, I'll read the little chapter about that monster because it makes me think of things in a completely different way.
Yeah, it's on Audible too. That's how I get it.
Yeah, this copy I've actually bought as a present for a friend, so I'm just waiting to mail that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, wonderful book. I think in addition to everything that's been said here, something I've thought about when boarding larger creatures. I don't know if that's if that helps the language of this at all, actually. But I've thought about it. Like how
Mounting them.
Well, kind of. It's going to be
Man,
kind of getting to the point of what I'm mentioning here.
Whenever you're climbing.
I was thinking airport. I was thinking airport now, suiting section 3, and then Jacob just took it the whole other.
Just tying them up and mounting them,
Memo to self: don't hop on a plane with Jacob. But I think about like when the party gets horses. Usually it's like one medium character to a horse. Or sometimes you might fit a smaller character onto one of the ones with onto one of the horses in addition to the medium character. Kind of that. Oh, and it looks like we've got our additional guest. Possibly.
Frederick Wheeler.
Hey.
But so yeah, like considering like how many characters can fit onto a horse, which is a larger creature, I think like if I'm gonna let characters like climb onto other creatures, I'm like, if it's a large creature, only one of you can really fit on it comfortably, like a troll. Like, if one of them's on its back, where's the other person gonna be? So, like, 1 on a large, 2 on a huge, 3 on a gargantuan, unless it makes different story sense, like a Tarrasque. I think it's reasonable to say, despite it being a gargantuan creature, all the party can probably climb on that. which
It probably won't even notice you being on.
which leads me to wonder, and this will probably be a different topic for another day, should some creatures be a size category that is beyond gargantuan? But different topic for another day. Yeah, and welcome to the stream, Fred. Hopefully you're oh,
Am I here?
you are heard.
Yeah, so while you were doing your first question, I was thrown by a giant Goliath from New Zealand, and it's taken me this long to actually travel the complete arc all the way to North America.
Featherfall,
I
right?
finally just landed now.
Featherfall.
So instead of answering your question, I actually was in the process of practicing. I can tell you now, Featherfall is very useful. So I have arrived. What is our question?
So the current question that we're working with is how would you facilitate I want to ride that syndrome, where players want to climb onto larger creatures?
Well, how would I? Well, it's not how would I. I have done it like a lot. Unfortunately, many times there's been dragons, there's been a purple worm, there's been a giant centipede in a Star Wars game. There's been quite a few different things that people have tried to jump onto. And I think every single time I haven't said no, as long as the creature that's jumping onto something else is, it's a reasonably small creature going onto a reasonably large creature. Otherwise, it's kind of like you get the squish effect rather than, if you've got a medium onto a medium, it doesn't quite work. So you get more like a sandwich rather than an actual right on a beast sort of scenario. So I usually go yes, mainly because I'm always hoping they will fall off, because I can always see that being a lot of fun. But can I just say, Wally, that your scenario of them doing like a backflip and rolling around, like I love that much more, and so I'll be incorporating that as like, oh, you're on the creature, it decides to do a roll, it rolls over, squish. I mean, how much damage is that? I think that'll stop people jumping onto anything, frankly, if you ask me.
10d10 of bludgeoning.
Yeah. The rules in the Dungeon Master Guide on jumping and climbing around on other creatures is they suck. I never liked them, and I found my players never liked them. And just to reiterate, I'm still going to bag on the Dungeon Master Guide. Not calling out anybody in particular. I know anybody.
No
in this
problem,
table.
Fred.
I'm just calling out. I'm just calling out Wizards of the Coast. You could have done a better job. But look, honestly, I find that players don't like the idea of using up their action when they are jumping onto a creature, because the whole idea of them jumping onto the creature was they're going to fight on the creature. And if they're having to burn up actions to do that sort of sucks for them. So I've allowed players to jam their sword into the creature as an attack and then just hang on as part of that whole process, rather than trying to... Pardon? Yeah, it's a grapple,
Grapple's
but
treated like an attack, right?
yeah, it is. Yeah, but I mean the whole lot. I mean, you can't really grapple a giant creature, and the idea is you're using it as terrain. But I just go with like, okay, yeah. How are you going to hang on? Well, I'm going to jam my sword or my blade into the creature, and that's what I'm hanging on to, so that they can continue to sort of wail on it with another weapon if they've got one, or bite it. I had somebody try to bite a large creature one day. So usually I just ask for an acrobatics check or an athletics check to just get onto the thing, and then it's just an acrobatics check after that on their turn. And it's not like it's burning up an action, it's just part of the process, like, are you able to stay on there or not? And then of course there's the creature. When it has its turn, it's going to do the rodeo style, try to bulk them. Frankly, I haven't really found, I mean, there's it's not like it's a repeat maneuver that you can constantly do over and over and over. Even though I've had it happen in my games a lot, it's not like it comes up all the time. But anyway,
it happens eventually, but not
me.
recurring for sure.
No, I mean, how often are you going to be fighting a Tarrasque? Probably not that often. Yeah. So
Unless you find
anyway.
the scroll of Tarrasque summoning, and then you can.
Well, I mean, here's the problem. I hate to say it, people. You can't kill a Tarrasque All you did was put it back to sleep. That's all you did. Yeah.
Fantastic bit of lore. I love that you don't kill it. It's just back to sleep. Also, on a talking about sizes and stuff like that, have you guys heard that the new giant fighter, I think it is, can just grapple larger creatures?
That's funny.
I'm sure they're probably going to change some things about that once it's out of UA, but I'm intrigued.
Can't you baseline grapple one size larger?
One size larger, and I believe that fighter can grow to a size larger, or possibly even... I don't know. I haven't really given a look over.
And
Is that
when
like
they're
superpower?
raging,
Okay.
they get additional abilities, I think.
Wait, so
That's
they can
when they-
grapple a giant? That's
That's
kind of funny.
That's what I'm understanding.
I'm just imagining like
Do you guys like grapple rules? Because I hate the grapple rules. It's pointless.
they kind of suck. Yeah, they kind of.
I mean,
You grapple. Okay, great. They can't move.
But then I mean,
But
what?
you're
You
not
can use
restrained,
them
though.
kind
Like, you
of.
can still throw spells, so it's always like, then you have to
Do
be...
everything.
Yeah,
just can't
so
move.
it's
it's
And that grapple master feat, whatever the fuck it's called, it sucks. It's really bad because then
Okay.
you restrain yourself, so then you can't move either. And it's
Gimmick
like, oh, you get
infringement,
advantage, but then you don't get advantage because you're also restrained.
I
So it's
got-
like, what the fuck
This
am I
is
doing?
gimmick infringement on Fred, by the way. He's the one who trashes Wizards of the Coast. We usually have to defend it, okay?
Can I just say that if you've played older versions of the game, you'll know that the grappler rules or grappling in Dungeons and Dragons has always been a pain in the butt. Okay.
3.5, they
I
didn't
feel
even
like grappling
work.
rules in many of these games have
And-
always been bad.
Yeah, but so we used to somebody would say in the game, particularly when we played 3.5, somebody said, I want to grapple a creature. We'd all punch them, like physically punch them until they said
could
no, they
never
didn't want to
figure
do
it
it
out.
anymore because it was so horrible to go through, and then we would just torture them if they wouldn't submit to the
Fred.
punching, mate, because it was so appallingly bad. Okay,
You want to
so-
grapple them? You're getting a wedgie.
whack, whack, whack. Yeah, we just pound on them. But look, the problem with the grappler rules, as you point out, Juice, is that it's the grappler feat. That grappler feat. If you ditch the grappler feat, which is garbage and ridiculous, it's like your adventurers don't know how to ride a horse unless you have a feat or an ability or something. That's ridiculous. It's nonsense. Basic training, you would have had to learn to do some sort of grappling because it's going to happen, no matter what kind of fighting, even if you're fighting with a weapon. I know because I used to teach martial arts and how to fight. So the concept is you get rid of the grappler's feet, and now when you put on your grapple, you stop their movement, but then you do it again to lock it in. This is when you apply your arm lock or your leg lock or whatever it is you're trying to, and then you restrain them. It means anybody can do it, but the only way you can make that happen is to take that grappler feet and flush it down the toilet, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
I'm
Yeah.
inclined to agree.
yeah,
Honestly,
it makes sense to me too. And I mean, it's a tactic. Sure, you miss out on an attack and instead you're grabbing somebody, but in a recent campaign for myself, one of the players decided to grapple a humanoid-sized creature, completely took this NPC out of the fight. They would have killed everybody if that character hadn't done that. So I'm like, I have some respect for grappling, but it is
What
it
if you grapple? So say as the attacker I grapple. Okay, automatically it's a success, but the other person still makes the save right then and there to be restrained or not. And if they make the save, they're not restrained, but they are grappled. Do you know what I mean? So then it's like I don't know. That to me makes a lot of sense, because if I'm in a fight with someone and I go to grab them, no matter what, I'm going to grab them. Am I successful in doing what I want with them? No. And is there a chance that they're going to flip me on my ass on their turn? Yes. Or get the upper hand? Yes. But in the moment, if I'm reaching for someone, I'm grabbing them. Like, there's no question about it for the most part, I don't know. The rules suck, and it's hard to replicate.
Have you ever done any judo, Juice?
I did martial arts when I was a kid, and I was in the Marine Corps for a little bit, and I was a bouncer. So I've had a lot of incidents with people.
He wants to throw me out a window.
yeah, he wants to chuck Wally.
So I used to teach people martial arts, and judo was part of it. And we used to make the comment that whoever tried to throw the other first was the one who would lose. So whoever tried to initiate it was usually the one who was going to get either their groin pulverized, or their arm put into a lock, or as the other person's trying to grab them, wind up with an elbow in the face, or something else going on that they didn't want to have happen. So usually you never wanted to put on a throw unless somebody put themselves in a really awkward situation. You usually wanted to hit them first before you ever tried to do anything like that. So actually, I don't know that it's a bad concept. I think if we were to try to duplicate reality, the game would suck. It would be bogged down by nonsense.
For sure, agree with that. 100% agree with that.
And that brings us to the end of this discussion on when characters feel the need to hop onto monsters in order to fight them. Be sure to check out all the channels of the guests who were present during this Dungeon Master Roundtable. You can find the links to those in the description below. And until next time, may you always play Dicely.